Tonight, Bank of Ghana governor fights back, insisting he has done no wrong and mounts strong defense of $250 million headquarters, insisting there has been no procurement breach on the day the NDC minority formally notified the police of its intention to occupy the central bank premises on the 5th of September to force the governor out.
The decision to commence construction was taken as far back as 2019, when the bank generated profits. If we were to be taking the decision today, building a legacy head office would not have been a priority.
We interrogate the governor's defense as he declares the economy would have collapsed but for the BOG's intervention.
They did not see queues at the pump for petrol and diesel. There were no shortages of international essential items on the market. And they did not hear that public sector workers, including civil servants, the police and the military, were not being paid their salaries. The reason was that the Bank of Ghana had provided the needed support to keep the economy going.
This is Top Story with Evans Mensah.
And Top Story is always brought to you by Vodafone. He has 8 days before he must either resign or face a series of political actions, including the occupation of his premises by the NDC minority. In fact, today, the NDC MPs formally notified the police of their intention to protest at the Bank of Ghana headquarters to force the resignation of Dr. Ernest Addison. Well, with 8 days to go, the Bank of Ghana governor is tonight fighting back, insisting he has done no wrong. In fact, he declared today the economy would have collapsed but for the BOG's intervention.
It is important to state that a significant part of the annual borrowing was just to meet debt service and energy payment obligations, given that Ghana's annual external debt service payments and energy payments alone had risen to the range of $3 to $4 billion annually as at 2020. Losing access to the international capital market for new financing immediately triggered a liquidity crisis for government, spilling over into a balance of payments crisis, as the country had to continue to honor its debt service obligations, energy payments, and import bill. In keeping up with these critical external payments, the Bank of Ghana lost $500 million in external reserves in just 2 months, with no new inflows of foreign currency from the usual annual Eurobond issuance to replenish its reserves. Furthermore, to help address government's liquidity crisis, the bank extended additional overdraft to the government to address auction failures and prevent domestic default, and enabled government to meet domestic debt obligations and other critical payments needed to avoid a disorderly halt to economic activity. Throughout the first half of 2022, there was no new foreign financing until July, when the Afrexim Bank stepped in to support with $750 million. This is a typical replay of what is referred to in the literature as a first-generation macroeconomic and balance of payments crisis. You would recall that many people doubted if the economy was in crisis because they did not hear that interest rates on bonds were not being paid in early 2022. They did not see queues at the pump for petrol and diesel. There were no shortages of international essential items on the market, and they did not hear that public sector workers, including civil servants, the police and the military, were not being paid their salaries. The reason was that the Bank of Ghana had provided the needed support to keep the economy going.
Well, he's also been accused of breaking the Bank of Ghana Act when they refused to go back to Parliament to brief Parliament about the excessive borrowing a government has been forcing them to do in terms of the financing of the huge gap a government had found in its own books. Well, today, the Bank of Ghana addressed that. It says they breached no law.
In all these, the Bank of Ghana has acted within the applicable laws. It is not true that the Bank of Ghana has been providing financing for government every year. There has been zero financing in 2017, 2018, 2019, and 2021. The Bank of Ghana has only had to support in the pandemic year of 2020 and the crisis year of 2022. The Bank of Ghana Act, as amended, limits financing of the government to 5% of the previous year's tax revenue. This provision in the law has been adhered to since I took office in April 2017. Between 2017 and 2019, in addition to the requirements of the Act, the bank signed a memorandum of understanding with the Ministry of Finance to even impose a tighter restriction of zero central bank financing. And this was observed strictly, even though the MOUs were not legally binding. Between 2012 and 2015, the bank provided overdraft to finance government and Cocoa Board every year. And there was neither a pandemic or a global economic crisis.
Well, under Section 30 of the amended Act 612, it had been stated there that where the total loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills and securities made under subsection 1 is 5% of the previous fiscal year's total revenue, the governor shall notify the minister and parliament of the attainment of the limit under subsection 2, and the minister, upon notification, shall report to parliament on the remedial measures to be taken. The emphasis for those who criticize the Bank of Ghana and allege that they've broken the law as far as this is concerned is the emphasis on the governor shall notify the minister and parliament of the attainment of the limit. Well, the Bank of Ghana governor addressed that. He says, well, as far as it's concerned, there has been no violation on this particular act too.
When Ghana was hit with the COVID-19 in 2020, Section 36 of the Bank of Ghana Act as amended was triggered. And as indicated earlier, the bank purchased the 10 billion cedis worth of the COVID-19 bonds to support the economy through the pandemic. This was done within the applicable laws governing the Bank of Ghana. When Section 36 of the Act as amended is triggered, it allows the governor, the Minister of Finance, and the Controller and Accountant General to agree on a new limit of central bank financing. The law further says that the Minister of Finance will then have to inform Parliament, and the Minister has since informed Parliament as part of his briefing to update Parliament on the IMF program and the status of the domestic debt exchange.
Well, George Yafe was there for us, and he is with me in the studio right now. And George, so we've had him on the substance of the economy and why they had been so exposed to the government to the tune of 40 billion plus, and that has led to this huge loss on his books. They've explained that. But then there is this huge controversy over this $250 million that they allegedly are spending to build this headquarters. Now, I have been following what has happened today. Did he clarify exactly how much the building cost?
Evans, not necessarily, but also to more give a chronology about when the process started, and somewhere in 2019, and also the fact that construction began in 2001. And at that time, they had to follow on profits made in those years to finance this new headquarters. Fast forward, he also explained that if we're in this current situation, would they have gone ahead to do it? No.
The bank then began to plan the building of its new head office, taking into consideration the need to ensure that the building meets all the requirements of a modern central bank of international standards, similar to central bank head office buildings in Abuja and Dakar, and includes provision for data centers, currency processing centers, vaults, and other sensitive installations. It is not just a simple, ordinary building. Let me re-emphasize that the bank followed all the necessary public procurement processes in this endeavor. No procurement laws were broken. The decision to commence construction was taken as far back as 2019, when the bank generated profits. Appropriations for the head office were made each year from profits made in 2019, 2020, and 2021. The project has therefore been going on for over 3 years. The DDEP only took place in January 2023. If we were to be taking the decision today, building a legacy head office would not have been a priority. However, this is a project that has been running for 3 years and about 50% complete. The bank is fully aware of its responsibilities to ensure that the costs do not escalate beyond reasonable levels, and that many of the original design features, including the data center, the currency processing center, ICT equipment, and specialized security features will have been deferred, and only gray boxes provided for future use to manage costs.
Well, and since this press conference, George, the Bank of Ghana has published a further and better particulars relating to the
details on when this construction started, specific features, and what it's supposed to do, and what they've done so far,
and also the procurement processes that led to the selection of the current contractor. Gold Key Properties, but also the project management company under single source and restricted tendering. We'll get through to that for you pretty shortly. But George, there was a central accusation in all this, which is that the central bank may have printed money in the midst of the crisis to finance government. You asked that question.
Yeah.
What was the answer?
Well, the governor claims that, listen, they have a lot of resources in their fold, or let's use the word the vault, that they can rely on. And even, for instance, commercial banks keep some fraction of their deposit with the Bank of Ghana. And they had to fall on this reserves or resources to finance government, meaning this overdraft that was carried out in last year, they fell on these resources to finance government, and that it is not accurate that they went out to physically print money to support government's budget or finance government's operations.
Okay, so that's a categorical denial there. There was a physical printing of cash to finance government operations, and as I've been saying, the minority today are formally written to the police, communicating the intention to embark on this protest on the 5th of September. I want to bring in the communications officer of the Opposition National Democratic Congress, Sammy Gyamfi, joins us right now on the telephone line. Sammy, let's start first with the issue on the headquarters. Are you satisfied with the explanations we've got today? Subsequently, they publish the fuller details, the further and better particulars, that we can all now see the justification for the procurement procedures that were adopted and investments made. Happy?
Ivan, I think Ms. Governor Addison has rather made his case worse by the press conference he held today, because none of the flimsy justifications he canvassed justifies the decision by the Bank of Ghana to engage in this totally misplaced priority at this time. You know, first of all, we have indicated our opposition to this project, not because we disagree in principle with the idea that the Bank of Ghana needs, a new office complex. We have opposed this project on 3 main grounds. The first is the timing of the project. The second is the cost of the project. And the third has to do with the processes leading to the project. And with regards to the first issue of timing, what we have said is that in this critical time, where Ghanaians are going through excruciating hardships because the Ghanaian economy has been virtually collapsed, we have, for the first time in 4 decades, defaulted on our debt obligations as a country. Currently, the government is imposing a draconian, punitive debt restructuring program on bondholders and government creditors. You have serious liquidity challenges, that the government as an institution is going through with its attendant hardships on the people. You cannot, in the midst of all these crises, decide that you are going to invest a whopping $250 million into an ultra-modern, palatial office complex at this time.
Well, Sammy, but the central bank governor does not disagree with you. In fact, he agrees with the point you just made. Let me quote you what he said. He says, quote, "If we were to be taking the decision today, building a legacy head office would not have been a priority." But the decision was not taken today, he says. The decision to commence was 2019. And he says the appropriations for the head office were made each year from profits, 2019, 2020, 2021. So he agrees with you, except that the decision was not taken this year.
Okay, that is what even makes it worse. Because per his own press statement, this contract was awarded on the 26th of March 2020. And as a matter of fact, 26th of November 2020. That was the time where COVID was at its peak. That was one of the lowest points of this country in history in terms of our economy. Everything was in disarray. You understand? And the Bank of Ghana had to even give government money in the form of bonds to the tune of 10 billion Ghana cedis. In fact, at some point, Ms. Governor Addison, is on record to have said that the Bank of Ghana could not continue to support the economy if COVID persisted, because we were in a very precarious situation in 2020. And so, how can you say that it is not a priority? It wouldn't have been a priority for the Bank of Ghana to have commenced this project in 2023, when our economic situation, as at the time this project was awarded, which is 26th November 2020, was worse than it is today. Even though the contract was awarded on the 26th of November 2020, according to Ms. Governor Addison, the site for the project was handed over to the contractor in March 2021. Evans, can you in all honesty tell me that Ghana is currently in a better financial position today than it was in 2021 March? The answer is definitely no. So this guy is just contriving flimsy and baseless excuses. But you see, the more he does that, the more he continues to expose himself. If he agrees with us that this project is a misplaced priority given the economic difficulties we have on our hands today, then how can he say that the project, at the time it was awarded in November 2020, was a priority? Or at the time the site was released to the contractor in March 2021 was a priority? Compare the growth rate of our economy in 2020 to the growth rate in 2023. Compare all the economic matrices. They were all worse than it is today as compared to when this project was awarded. So that justification falls flat. Is a non-starter, and you shouldn't even go there. But
then, if you look at the specifics, though, you're talking about value for money. He says they managed. If you look at other projects in that same range, they are doing a per square meter of just over $2,000, which compares quite competitively with others who are far higher, close to $3,000, and that is only due to the prudence of the management and the decisions they've taken to even cut some of the aspects and additions out.
First of all, let's concede that this justification of the project being a priority after the time it was awarded is completely nonsensical. So, and let's move to this issue of cost. Look, the amount of money the Bank of Ghana is pumping into this needless project, which is hovering around $250 million as we okay, can build 3,756 unit classroom blocks. As a matter of fact, if you want to look at health, it can build over 3,000 chip compounds. And it is 4 times more expensive than similar buildings in this same city of Accra. In fact, in the same location, the building is being put up. In that same location where this new needless palatial office complex is being put up, you have the newly built EcoBank head office, one of the most beautiful, most extravagant buildings you can find in Accra. That building cost EcoBank $60 million. $60 million.
But it has none of the features that this particular building will have.
They don't have vaults there. Who told you? They should tell us what is in this new building that is not in the EcoBank building, which was built very recently and commissioned very recently. Look, this is a building which, according to the Bank of Ghana, per their own letters to the Public Procurement Authority, was supposed to originally cost the taxpayer $100 million. This is contained in Ms. Governor Addison, the money printer's own press statement, which you read today. $100 million. The Public Procurement Authority, after analyzing all the documentation, the design, came to the conclusion that the project should not cost more than $81 million. So the original PPA approval for the project was at a cost of $81 million. Then Ms. Governor Addison goes to do his own evaluation, his own base, and awards a contract 50% more the approved amount. So instead of $81 million, he awards a contract at $121 million. Then the PPA raises queries. The Central Tender Review Committee also raises queries. How can you do this? You were given approval for $81 million. Why would you award a contract at $121 million? Then he says that, he used restricted tendering, and $121 million was the lowest bid he got. So they give him the approval. It is ratified. Then, as he's implementing this project, without the approval of the PPA or the Central Tender Review Board, he now varies the scope and the designs of the project and increase the cost of the project from $121 million to $227 million. And the contractor actually started implementing this newly varied contract, new scope, new design. They started implementing it, executing it before he wrote to the Public Procurement Authority. And that this complicit Public Procurement Authority and its appendage, the Central Tender Review Board, decide to give their blessing to this palpable illegality.
But in the last few minutes, the BOG has published the further and better particulars. And as far as cost is concerned, the only cost item there approved, according to their own account of how they came to what cost, is $121 million. There isn't a mention of $250 million in the BOG's own account. Where are you getting that money from?
So that is why I indicated to you that Ms. Governor Addison has only made his case, worse. Even check your WhatsApp. And this is a very, very important platform that, we owe it a duty to our listeners to educate them and share with them the true facts. If you check your WhatsApp now, I forwarded to you a letter dated 17th January 2023. And this letter was written by the Central Tender Review Committee. In fact, it is on the letterhead. And this is a committee of the Ministry of Finance. The title of the letter is Construction of Corporate Headquarters, Our South Ray Accra Variation. Now, when you read paragraph 2 of the letter, it says that the committee reviewed the Bank of Ghana's variation request at the 17th emergency sitting on Thursday, 29th December 2022. In a letter dated 30th December 2022, the committee communicated concerns to Bank of Ghana, which was responded to in a letter dated 5th January 2022. Following a review of the response, the committee noted that the issues raised remain unsatisfactorily addressed. Bank of Ghana was accordingly invited to a clarification meeting and was subsequently requested to submit the original contract document, design proposal, differences in scope of work, and other relevant documentations of the project to facilitate the review of the request. Now, paragraph 3. At the 21st emergency meeting on Tuesday, 17 January 2023, the committee reviewed the documentation submitted by Bank of Ghana and noted the following. 1. inadequate project design conception and preparation of the original contract. Look at the next one. Entirely new scope in design for the revised project. Entirely new scope in design for the revised project. Then you come to 3. Revised scope of works has already commenced prior to seeking approval from the Central Tender Review Committee. In spite of this, check paragraph 5 of the letter. This compensates the Tender Review Committee instead of suspending this project. Now says at paragraph 5 that in view of the stage of the project and the reasonableness of the unit cost, the committee grants concurrent approval for the revised scope of works at a contract amount of $222,799,760.
Yeah, but that is still 250 million.
Look, and this price excludes the cost of the land. The land which, according to them, was compulsorily acquired. They paid compensation for it. How much did they pay? Add that, you will see 250 million.
Okay. Sammy, thank you very much. And as we interrogate this, a lot more questions still to be answered by the central bank, indeed, as far as the building is concerned, but also on the economy. Sammy, I'm grateful that you joined me with your thoughts. And as we know tonight, the minority had written to the police notifying them that they will go on that protest on the 5th of September. Also joining me right now with a quick intervention on the subject of the law, because we had the central bank governor today for the first time talk about whether or not he's breached the law because he failed to go to Parliament. Martin Kpebu is a lawyer, and he had maintained that the Bank of Ghana governor needed to do so. Martin, you heard the central bank governor today. He says it's the minister's responsibility to do so, and he breached the law. You agree?
I don't at all. I don't agree. Evans, the law is very clear, but before I read it out, this building, just one comment on it. I'll bet that because this building has a very low per unit cost, I really have sympathies for the Bank of Ghana on the building, because per unit cost, that building is cheaper than, you see, you mentioned EcoBank, there's Stanchart, there's Zenith Bank. This building per unit cost is cheaper than all those buildings. So when we are dealing with this, I think we should get more experts to come. You see, even the letter Mr. James read from, it says because of the reasonable cost per unit. So me, because I just saw that for the first time, government is building cheaper than private companies, I have a soft spot for the building, just that per unit costing. Now, let's come to the law. That one, I think Governor Addison got it wrong. Evans, the law says that when he reaches the threshold, he should also go to Parliament. You see, there is a principle of interpretation. The ordinary words have their ordinary meaning. He should go to Parliament by himself. Finance Minister going to Parliament doesn't excuse Governor Addison. Let's go to the subsection 7. It says, where the total of loans, advances, purchases of treasury bills and securities made under subsection 1 is 5% of the previous fiscal year's total revenue, the governor shall notify the minister and Parliament of the attainment of the limit. Let's just stop there. It says notify the minister and notify Parliament. And Evans, there's a reason. Our representatives will be able to ask questions. What's the build-up? Don't you see Jerome Powell in the U.S.? He goes to Congress. They grill him. They ask what's happening this in the central bank governor, the Federal Reserve. Jerome Powell is subject to Congress. And also, let's not also forget, under Article 184, the Bank of Ghana has to report to the Finance Committee on Finance Committee of Parliament. He's been dodging them. So please, this one is very clear. You go and tell them, Master, we've reached the limit. Then they'll ask you what caused the limit. This. All those things, then you answer. So under 7, when they've exceeded and come with a new, under 6, when they've come with a new figure and they say Finance Minister should go, let Finance Minister also go and do his. But the law is very clear. It says, when you reach the limit, notify Finance Minister, notify Parliament. Parliament is complaining that Governor Addison has been swerving them. He's been playing hide and seek with them, and that's where we'll hold him accountable. As for the building, like I said, please, every time I want to discuss it, let's look at the per unit cost.
I'm just
as long as we keep building roads, hospitals, etc., then we should look at it. If we can't come to a
Martin,
standstill.
I'm just curious, will you join the protests on the 5th of September?
Absolutely. Oh, yes. Absolutely. So that on the matter of the monetary financing, that's financing government beyond the 5% and not notifying Parliament, that's why I'll be there. I'll not be there because of the building. As I say, as for the building, so far I have a soft spot just because of the per unit cost. But I'll be there to hold Governor Addison responsible on the matter of not notifying Parliament, the way he doesn't want to be subject to Parliament. If Parliament, look, the Constitution is clear that he must be answering to the Finance Committee, is in swerving them. They only give reports 6 months, when the horses have bolted. No, they're building a democracy. What is he hiding?
Martin, thank you very much. And this is a subject, of course, we hear more of in business shortly.
Go for gold.